Although it's been quite a number of months since the launch of D2R, it's unclear if some items have even been found yet. This may be a good opportunity to talk about some of the best endgame chase items in Diablo 2, namely jewels. For every seasoned player out there that knows the value of their jewels, there's another player who's crafted with something that could have fetched him a fortune. So in this video, we're going to look at the things that make an in-game jewel valuable. And if we can take anything from some of the more niche items that are even more common, it's estimated that one of these jewels in particular would be worth about 100 jaw runes, if somebody actually finds it. Let's check these out. All right, let's dive into these. What do we got first? Just starting right up with the big guns right here. Probably one of the things you were thinking about when you clicked on this video. This right here is the famous 4015 jewel. Although 4015 can refer to a few different things, this is typically the jewel right here that most people are referring to when they use those numbers. The reason this is so good is because rare jewels can't spawn with up to 40 enhanced damage. They can only go to 30. Additionally, ohm runes can go to 50% enhanced damage, but they don't really offer anything else in the way of meat and breakpoints. This jewel really doesn't need any introduction. A lot of people know why 4015 jewels are good, but you might not know immediately what they're worth. As we talked about in previous videos, prices are subject to change depending on what time of the ladder or launch we're talking of. But at this current point in time, about 6+ months after the launch of the game and on non-ladder, these jewels right here might fetch you about 3 to 4 jaw runes. As far as magic jewels go, this is probably one of the better ones that you could get, and I don't think anyone really needs a reminder that you want to keep this one. Not to be confused with this ruby jewel of fervor right here. Apparently, the naming conventions and creativity were difficult back in the day. Jewels can spawn with this 15% increased attack speed and up to 30 to any single resistance. The fire or ruby jewel of fervor here with 30 fire res is probably one of the more desirable ones because people enjoy jamming this one right into an Andariel's Visage. So this jewel in particular, for all of the different resistance jewels with individual resistances, it's probably one of the most desirable ones. But another type of 4015 jewel that's actually pretty good is this ruby jewel of freedom right here. The 15 in this case refers to the requirements minus 15%. Believe it or not, Zons actually stashed this into their shields, much like I have right here. So that minus 15 requirements that's on that jewel actually goes a long way. Back in LOD, Zons would strength bug their characters with these, but even in D2R, this proves to be a very good thing, allowing you to commit less stat points to strength and focus more on dexterity and vita. Jewel like this right here might fetch you maybe 0.5 to 1 jaw runes. And while we're on the kick of 40% enhanced damage, these types of jewels can spawn with other really cool mods such as minimum damage and maximum damage here. These jewels right here can be really good in the right weapon and might fetch you 1 to 2 jaw runes if you find one of them. But probably one of the most unsung hero type jewels in this lineup right here is the 1515 jewel. A lot of different characters, Amazons, assassins, some creative paladin builds are seeking out this jewel right here for its awesome benefits. As you might know, 15% increased attack speed cannot spawn on a rare jewel, so it is indicative for this to spawn on a magic jewel. When it does, especially in this day and age so long after the launch, you're gonna want some very useful mods to spawn on the jewel with it. All Resistances 15 is a very good mod in and of itself, and when these two things spawn together, this could fetch you quite a bit. Anywhere from about 2 to 3 jaw runes. As a good rule of thumb, whenever you find a jewel that has 15% increased attack speed, you just kind of want to keep an eye on the other useful things, which we'll go over in a moment, that do indeed spawn on the jewel with it. Especially if any of those things have a wide range at which they can be. If they spawn perfectly, it's probably going to fetch you something. Another jewel that is extremely useful, a lot of people used to put these in suicide branches to hit the max cast breakpoint on druids, and they still do have quite a bit of uses elsewhere, is the 2015 jewel. The reason that's so good is because rare jewels can only roll with up to 8 life, so this is a very, very nice roll right here and very useful in certain items. This one right here could still fetch you about 1 to 2 jaw runes. All right, now we've got some unidentified jewels. Let's go ahead and pop into these right here. What are we looking at? What an amazing low-level dueling jewel right here. Some people might find a jewel like this and see that it's only plus 24 to maximum damage, and in your mind, you might know, hey, these can roll up to 30 max damage, and, you know, depending on a lot of things, they can roll with more damage on them. So what's so special about this 24 to max damage jewel? Well, if you go ahead and take a quick look at that level requirement right there, level 27, this is the most amount of max damage that can spawn on a jewel at that level. Finding a jewel like this might fetch you about 2 to 3 jaw runes, and it is extremely sought after, as you'll see with a lot of these low-level dueling jewels, mainly because as time goes on, people are destroying good low-level dueling jewels. They don't hold on to them. They don't know that they're good. They just don't exist as much as like 4015s or jewels you don't have to tell somebody that they're good. Up next, we've got Oh, look at this. Another Jewel of Carnage for LLD. Sometimes people will see this plus 20 to enhanced damage roll on a magic jewel, and they'll get so frustrated that it's not higher than that. They'll see it as a mid roll, and they'll just chuck it out. But 20 enhanced damage can actually roll on a level 9 jewel. Like, it's very low that can actually roll for a level requirement. There's plenty of different weapons, such as robo axes or robo weapons or rare weapons with IAS, 2 sockets, E-rep. There's so many different things that these types of jewels could go into. The whole meta of items changes for low-level dueling. Perhaps that deserves its own video as well, because I can't even imagine how many of these items don't even get picked up. But if you do find a very good one, this is probably one of the best jewels you can find for level 18 dueling. Is that it for my magic jewels here? There's actually a ton more magic jewels that you can find that have useful stats. It's almost impossible to go over the specific combinations of every single one, but just know there's a certain few things that you can look for. There's 2 types of things that can spawn on any jewel, whether it's rare or whether it's magic. These are hero-edited jewels that you cannot find, so don't get your hopes up. But the abilities that you see on these jewels right here, I've split up into good starter mods, meaning if your jewel spawns with these types of mods as a rare jewel, or even contains some of these as a magic jewel, then one of these lists are really good starter mods that your jewel is going to need in order to really get it to that top tier. Like, hey, this is a good jewel. If I had to add to this for magic jewels, it would be like increased attack speed, probably. That'd be a good one to have on there. And what I call the secondary abilities are not dead, but they're definitely not going to want to be the main focus of the jewel. Like, you couldn't find like an attack rating jewel with, you know, negative recs and expect it to be worth something. But this is just a quick list right here on this jewel of the other mods, the secondary mods that supplement the primary mods of the jewel that can make it pretty good. So study these, keep them in mind, know that, and let's move on. So while it's going to be very hard to tell all of the different combinations on a rare jewel, I will show you some of them that actually play together very well when you find them and could make your jewel worth quite a bit. All right, what have we got first? This one right here does have the all resistances plus 10 mod, but the most important combo here is the plus to dexterity and negative requirements. This was a combination that was used to auto WSM claws back in LOD, but believe it or not, some assassins still use these in their claws to bump up their dexterity and essentially equip claws with other claws. Ideally, these would have other mods on them, such as possibly replenish life. I mean, the all resistance mod there is pretty good as well. Faster hit recovery, also a very desirable one here. So you're probably gonna want some of those other mods to spawn on a jewel like this, but if you do have that dexterity and negative requirements, that's actually a very rare sought after 2-piece combo on these rare jewels. You get one of these with 4 sick mods on it that are very highly rolled. You can probably expect yourself between 3 and 5 jaw runes for it. What up next? Ooh, one of those overstack res jewels right here. Look at this beauty. So some people might have been wondering where the faster hit recovery jewels were in the magic section. I will tell you, I tend to stay away from those because you can actually just find better stats on rare jewels with 7 faster hit recovery. But the cool support ability here is that this has an additional plus 30 to cold resist on it. The reason someone would use a jewel like this is they might stack it into Akira's to overstack in PvP versus cold sorks. They could do this additionally with lightning resist for VTs or conviction-based characters. But as you can see, this can be used all the way down the line for any resistance. So whenever you see jewels like these that spawn with all resistances and one resistance is over 30, especially if it has another really good starter mod on it, that's a decent jewel. With a jewel like this in particular, you could probably expect between 5 and 10 jaw runes. Again, just depends on the market. Up next, we have a beautiful LLD jewel. I think we had one of these in the Discord once. I think should have just used that. But I'm pretty sure it was might have been better than this. Again, one of the things you want to look for in just about every jewel, every time I ID one of these things, what's the level requirement and what do the abilities mean at that level? How good and overpowered are they at that level? It's got that 20% enhanced damage on it, but additionally it has 6 strength and 9 dex. I believe that's the most that can spawn on a jewel like this for low level dueling. These jewels right here are phenomenal. These can probably fetch you between 6 to 10 jaw runes pretty easily. Let's get into the meat and potatoes here. Look at this beast. Now this is a theoretically possible jewel to find, but I'm gonna make you one promise in this life. You will not find it. This is the notorious 1818 jewel right here. Even though this only has 2 abilities on it, it actually rolled with 4 stats. They just happen to combine when they're repetitive. Regardless, this is an insanely good jewel for melee characters, for chargers, for physical damage dealing characters. It's extremely rare, and this right here, I have not seen any of these on D2R, but should one pop up in the community, and you are the lucky person that found it, you, my friend, should accept no less than 50 jaw runes for this. This is so rare, so sought after in some very specific builds that people tend not to put together until they are at the end of the end game. Even if a jewel just spawns with an added amount of minimum or maximum damage and it's rare and it has some of these other mods that make it really good, these things can be pretty insane. So just pay close attention when you find these jewels right here and look at the sheer number of min or max damage that spawns on them, as it can be a good indicator that the jewel might be worth something. Let me guess, this is the king of all kings right here. Of course it is, the 306099. This is also something that we've seen some very close rolls of in D2R. Some people have gotten very close with that enhanced damage or the attack rating or the stats, but I have not seen a pure 100% perfect 306099 spawn yet in the community. If you are the lucky person to find this jewel, I would not accept any less than 100 jaw runes for it. And that's probably a conservative estimate. Now, obviously, this is one of the things that's probably more geared towards PvP. All of your PvP players and your very elite ones at that are probably gonna be looking for this. Definitely one of those chase items, and if you do find it, I would not be pressured into selling this for anything less than it's worth. People are probably gonna ask about facets and be like, oh, but I found a 5/5 facet once. These are never worth what you think they are. It's unfortunate, but it's true. If you do find one of those, you probably want it to be a 5/5 light dye or a 5/5 cold dye or a green 5/5 poison. You can expect yourself a whopping 0.1 jaw runes or some shit. It's really not that much.